All right. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. For those of y'all that joined us in February, welcome back. For those of y'all that it's your first time, thank you so much for coming here. We really love inviting people into our offices. And like Nikki said, my name is Samantha Guzman. Y'all can call me Sam, and I'm the current editor of Arts Access. When Nikki and I were talking about this theme today, innovation, I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. But I think in putting together this talk, we don't often have the luxury of pausing and thinking about all of the things that have led us to where we are today. And this talk gave me that opportunity. And innovation really has been at the center of what I've been doing in journalism for my career, even if I wasn't consciously thinking about it at the time. So it really is an honor, and I'm excited to talk about all of the crazy things that seemed maybe crazy at the time that I've tried in terms of innovation. All right, so I wanted to sort of just talk first about what innovation means to me. First, I think it means creating a new path. Yes, we all maybe have had the experience of working at an organization, and maybe you've created a new path for a place that you work at. But I think also my career has taken multiple turns, and it's about creating a new path for yourself as an individual too, trying things and just being open, adopting new technologies. As you'll see, it feels like, I mean, we're just talking about AI, right? There's new technologies that are emerging every day, and being open to them, I think, has been a big thing that has moved me throughout my career. Oh no. Oh, it's back. The technology didn't want me to talk bad about it. I like you, technology. Trying things and potentially failing. If this blacked out on us, that would be a great example. And then challenging established norms. News has been around for a long time, and there have been maybe some great things about it, but there's also been some standards, right? Certain people that we allowed to do different jobs, certain people that we tended to do stories about. And I think a big part of the innovation in my career is trying to challenge established norms, widening the tent, expanding who we might have been doing stories on in the past. Okay, so where I started, I grew up in Grand Prairie. Anybody from Grand Prairie? 2 people, yes, all right. I started in news photography at my high school newspaper. I even went to a newspaper camp in high school, so I was a nerd and I was into it, y'all. And I chose to stay close to home and to study photojournalism at the University of North Texas. And this was sort of right at the time where this new technology was coming out. DSLR cameras were being able to shoot HD video. And so it was opening up this world. Hey, you can take like cinematic quality video with a very small camera, which was not a thing before. I mean, now you see Kathy back there, who's amazing, right? So right at the cusp of this emerging technology, so I quickly was like, wow, this video stuff is cool. I want to expand. And I studied making video for web platforms, because that was sort of bubbling up at the time as well. And then I continued at UNT and got my master's in journalism. That's me up there defending my thesis, which, spoiler alert, I passed because they gave me the master's, so that was great. And part of the mixture of this work, both shooting HD video and also what I was studying when I was getting my master's, was the lack of equity, diversity, and inclusion in the media, led me to this first project that sort of combined all of those things. It's called The Heart of Mexico. These two pictures here, and it combined UNT students with students in Mexico, and we created multimedia stories, but the mission behind those stories was to combat the traditional narrative that you saw when it comes to stories about people in Mexico. My thesis was actually a framing analysis of the coverage of the border, in Mexico. And from that analysis, I can tell you that the coverage primarily was about violence, drugs. It wasn't necessarily the most positive picture, which is okay, right? Because some of those things were true. But what we found with this project is that there were everyday people in Mexico, and it's a much more complex narrative, just like in the United States, than a lot of the coverage that was getting played there. So, all right, I'm just gonna hope that it comes back. Yep, all right. So that kind of laid the foundation and the groundwork. The innovation was adopting this new technology that was emerging at the time, and also expanding my ideas and understanding what journalism maybe lacked in the past and what could we create in the future. From there, I did what everyone does. I graduated and got a job doing something else. Yeah. I got a job in radio, which might sound like a pivot, and it was a pivot, but I actually, when I was first making my transition to video, I wasn't a backseat listener, which is like, you know, someone that grew up listening to NPR. I wasn't that, but I really got into NPR when I was transitioning to video, because in order to have great video, you need great sound. And so I did fall in love with audio storytelling, and I got a job producing their daily talk show, Think, but I wanted to continue to do video storytelling. And at the time, no one at KRA was really doing this. And so this is another piece of advice. If no one's doing it, they're more likely to say yes, because they might not have any idea that anyone could do it. And people like free labor too. So I would volunteer and work on these special projects as well. KRA had a One Crisis Away series that they would do, which was basically this idea that most people living in North Texas are just one crisis away from having financial hardship. And so we did a project looking at West Dallas and this big development that was pushing people out of that section. And I met a man named Martin and did a short video doc on him. We also did an education series on failing schools in Fort Worth. And I followed a family that was attending one of the failing schools in Fort Worth and seeing what their life was going to be like if their school closed. And then I also produced 10 daily talk shows every single day. That was Think, which at the time, it was just locally, but if you still listen, you know, it's now expanded beyond Texas. And it really was a great experience and taught me a lot in terms of live production and things that I still carry on with my video work. And is anyone a big fan of Chris Boyd? Right? I know, she's as cool as you think, y'all. She's amazing. Okay. After KRA, I moved to Austin. I took a job at Austin PBS. And this is where I really focused solely on video storytelling. I started as an MMJ at Austin PBS, so one-man banding it, shooting, editing, doing all stuff. And I would file stories for both local PBS, and then there was a national show on PBS that I would file stories for as well. And then a little shortly after that, another opportunity came up to lead Austin PBS's public and news and public affairs show called Decibel. It was primarily a broadcast show, but we were moving. They wanted to move to a digital mindset. And so we were able to build a sort of new idea of how we were trying to tell people's stories. The beauty of working, I mean, we were a very small team. You can see that's me and Blair who were there. We were like the main team members, and we had a couple of other reporters and freelancers that we used. But we were able to experiment with things, again, because we just asked. And we're like, would you like to try this new way? And so traditionally journalism, it's kind of like a one-way street of communication. You have editors and reporters that come up with ideas, and then they go and report things, or something newsworthy happens and you come into a community. And what we wanted to do was develop a model that was more like a two-way street, and it had a circular feedback loop of communication. And so we hosted listening sessions, we had an advisory board, we would go out into the community and just set up our cameras. That day we just went, they were out in Pflugerville painting a mural, and we're like, let's just go like ask people stuff and see what they want to hear, the reporting. And then we would create documentaries, digital stories based on the big issues that were facing some of the community members. And then we would go back and we would survey them. How did you feel about this reporting? What's your level of trust in our reporting? Did this reporting make you feel seen? And I think what was really innovative of this approach was that we were open to what they were telling us. We did a project in this community called Del Valley, which is a little bit outside of Austin. And it was a very interesting place because it wasn't technically in the city of Austin, and it wasn't technically in the county as well. It was an unincorporated territory, which I'm still like, my mind still can't process it. It means when people like called 911, who would respond? It was very complex. And that was the main issue that we were hearing from folks when we were going out and talking to them. And so we created a resource guide, and then we partnered with the library and distributed it to folks. And so while we were primarily creating videos and thinking about video storytelling, we were open to experimenting with other formats as well, because we were listening to folks and trying to give them the information that they said that they needed to us. So yeah, it was all very exciting. And then you might not be able to tell, but that top photo up there, I'm pregnant, like 9 months. Yeah, my son, his name is Cam. He's 3 now. He was in there being my little assistant, although he wasn't assisting much, making things a little difficult. And I decided to come back to Dallas. Tom Wong, who I met first in that Heart of Mexico project, approached me about this really cool thing that they were doing here at Arts Access. And it seemed to combine my love of community engagement, my experience with radio, video, and I was like, I don't know, Tom, I'm 9 months pregnant. I don't know, we'll see. And he was like, you should try it. And being the ever innovator I was like, okay, let's see. And this opportunity, honestly, was really exciting. And I'm so glad I did it, because our team has really experimented and been an innovator. And I like to say we're kind of like an incubator in between both of these newsrooms. There's nothing that we won't try. Instagram Lives, Twitter Spaces, community events. This right here is from an event that we hosted at Kathy's house. How nice is Kathy's house? To celebrate a series that we did called Home Art, which is so in line with the theme of Creative Mornings. We too believe everyone is creative and has this creative spirit, and art doesn't have to be just in museums. It's in the homes of North Texans, and that is special. And so Home Art is a series, video, radio, print, digital, that looks at the items in North Texas homes that they treasure. And so to celebrate the launch of it, we hosted a house party to celebrate home art, and it was really fun. And so experimenting with how we can bring our stories to people in person, and also how we can expand the idea of what an artist is, has really been at the heart of what we've been trying to do with Arts Access. And I can't talk about the amazing work that this team has done without mentioning the 2 reporters, Liz and Zara, up there, because they really are so talented and able to tell stories in so many forms, and they keep me cool, which is the most important part. But they're plugged into these communities that we definitely want to build trust with, and they've been a testament to that great work that we've done. So to wrap things up, I think the lessons learned is being open to all opportunities. If you asked me when I was just starting out at UNT, what I was going to be doing. I don't think I could have told you this. But I'm so happy that the path that has led me there. And I think journalism has changed so much every year. It feels like something else is being developed and we have to reach people in new ways. And so I really think that being open to things is really how you move forward in an ever-changing world. It can sometimes be easy to be like, oh my gosh, it's all so crazy and exhausting. And I feel that too. But you also, being open to opportunities can lead you to paths that you couldn't have dreamed of. When I tell you that my hometown paper, I couldn't have dreamed, right, of working at my hometown paper and being here on the stage and like speaking for them. What? That's crazy, right? But being open to opportunities is what led to that. And the second thing is change can start with you. Sometimes maybe you can get in your head like, oh, I know they're going to say no. What's the point? Or I can't do this. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But it can be small, little things, and they can have a huge impact. I think a lot of the great work that we've done with Arts Access have really influenced both organizations in terms of community engagement events and things that they've experimented with. And that's something that I'm really proud of. And a lot of that stuff when we were just starting out was just like me and the team. And we did it. And so you really can do small things. And then they can have a big impact, which gets me to the last point, is it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be trying a new system today or talking to someone that you have been wanting to, but you've been nervous or in your head about it. You never know what any of these little changes. To me, innovation at the heart of it is just being open to change, being open to trying things. Because when you're open and when you're just trying out new things, you really build sort of like a stamina for being able to do this work. And it really does become easier. And then, you really can get some rewarding things throughout the way. And I know that I really rode through all the highlights here, but there was so much failure in there too. And that's okay. Trying things and failing. I feel like I've learned so much from the things that didn't work out, even more than I have from the things that might have worked out. So yeah, that's it, y'all. And I just want to open it up for questions if anyone has any.
15 minutes, so we have plenty of time.
We have plenty of time for questions. Hit me with them. Ooh, okay. Okay. Start with Marissa.
Thank you for sharing your story. I am curious, with this kind of more active listening, being more inclusive, super important with the community, have you seen linkages with like more civic engagement, voting, policy changes, like this intersectionality of, that like creating that two-way street and like voter turnout, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So separate from Arts Access, right? Because like Arts Access is an arts reporting project, right? And so when we're doing the community listening, we're always at a lens of how is this going to influence our arts reporting, right? And so an example of that is we hosted an event called Art Hack, which was information that we were giving to artists so they could have the tools to make their artistic practice more successful, similar to Art Boost, which we worked on together. So our goals were a little bit different than that, but the DMN itself has had their own larger initiatives like the Trust Initiative, which they've been doing. There was just a community event last night, Sabores, that was featuring a really great series that we did here, looking at different dishes, Mexican dishes, and sort of doing a spotlight on the people in the North Texas community that make them. And then we also had the Back to the Ballot initiative last year that we were actually going out in the community and informing people about voting practices. Amy, are we doing that again next year?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay. Sorry to put you on the spot, Amy. But yeah, I think, another thing that we've done we've hosted this event called this Build Your Own Newspaper event, where we invite folks into the offices and they go through different activities and they see how journalists do their jobs and how our newspaper gets made. And I think that has definitely, in terms of media literacy and civic engagement, had an impact, and people have left being like, wow, I didn't realize this is how you do your work and things. So we're trying many different things, and I think just from the feedback that we're getting from folks, it definitely seems to be resonating, and creating a stronger relationship with our audience, which I ultimately think is, the best goal. Kathy?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about those juicy details on your failures and
You sound like my husband. So I was practicing this last night with my husband, and he was like, where did you fail? He was like, I know, I remember the tears. So before I landed at KERA, I had like a slew of odd jobs. So I had my master's, so I taught photography adjunct at community colleges. And then my first job out of college was at this mortgage magazine. And I had to write like 5 stories a day focused on mortgage and things that I should not have been writing about, to be honest with you. And then I also had a job at this website called active.com, which I think is sort of like the BuzzFeed, but of the fitness world. And so I think it wasn't ideally what I wanted to be doing, and I was doing photography and photo work there. But it taught me a lot about the business side of the industry, because they were very focused on metrics and page views and clicking, because they were kind of like a BuzzFeed, but for endurance. But I also had to write quizzes like, what post-workout drink are you? Spoiler alert, I'm chocolate milk. So yeah, there was a lot of, trying things. And no shade to the Dallas Morning News, but I applied here a lot of times, y'all, and they didn't hire me until recently. So yeah, is that juicy enough? Okay, great. Okay, Elizabeth, and then I'll go to you. You would do before? Okay. Okay, you go, and then Elizabeth will go to you. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to know, what advice would you have for someone who wants to get into, really multimedia publications, and especially because it's like, oh, just tell good stories and people will come, and that is not true. But yeah, what advice would you have?
Is there a specific place that you would love to work at?
So this is actually for a client, the question, but
Oh, okay.
a magazine, and it's going to be for couples, and they're going to mix in video, of course, imagery, and then it's going to be basically a publication that will also have events tied to it.
Cool. I think the first thing is understanding your audience, right? Who is it that you want to reach? And then how? How are you going to reach them? A magazine is a different medium than, getting on social media, than YouTube shorts, right? Than all these ways that we can tell stories. So if you're really focused and really thinking about what you're trying to do, every one of those things, like building up Decibel, building up Arts Access, before we started, we talked about, what are our mission? What are our values? What do we want to be doing? What do we not want to be doing? And then how are we going to do it? How are we going to reach that mission? How are we going to showcase those values through the storytelling and the mediums that we're doing? And maybe this might be better for reaching people this way, but this might be better for that. It's crazy out there, right? Like, there's so much noise and there's so many places that you can be putting out your work and your storytelling. So I think the more intentional you are about what you're trying to do, the more focused you are about what you're trying to do, you can then have success and then build on that success and expand into other areas. Elizabeth.
That was great. I feel like every time I talk to you or hear about you, I'm like, oh my gosh, you did that. But I feel like the way that we consume information has changed so much over the years, and it feels like it's changing faster and faster. How much are y'all keeping up with the way that people are consuming media, and then how much are you balancing that with I mean, I think it seems like long form stuff is making a comeback. So are you spending a lot of time trying to keep up with what is current, or are you spending a lot of time working on some of those longer form pieces that take months to develop, and how do you find the balance between those?
Yes, and that's like the question that I think keeps everyone up at night, right? Like, how do we keep reaching people? How do we, tell this story and make sure that the eyeballs are getting on it, because it is really competitive out there. And now we've sort of optimized, and we're like, yeah, we get it. We know Google. We know what you're gonna do. And Google's like, don't worry, we're introducing AI overview. We're gonna keep you on our toes. Figure it out now, right? But yeah, I mean, I think what's so impressive about the DMN is they have an amazing audience team that's on top of all of those things and thinking about those questions. And they offer a lot of trainings because they want each individual journalist to be thinking about that too, right? From the headline to the copy to just the idea of what you're working on in a story. How are we going to reach audiences? And so you'll see daily stories about, hey, what's happening? And then you'll see great projects like the Standard of Fear that we released this year, which was about the abortion ban and what impact that had in North Texas. I think you kind of have to do everything, which I think gets back to the point on innovation and why I think being open to lots of things has made me more successful in my career, is because people are changing every single day and there's a new thing. Who could have predicted TikTok a couple years ago, right? And so you really, really just have to not have anybody catch you slipping. You need to just be on top of it and be open to it, right? Listen, I remember when vertical video first came a thing, and there were some photographers who were like, vertical video, how dare you? But no, if that's the way people can enjoy video or enjoy your storytelling, be open to it. I think I'm a firm believer in never turning your nose up at anything, and trying to, figure out new and interesting ways to tell our stories. So yeah, we're doing it all and trying. Yes.
How did AI impacted storytelling and story creation and telling? Like having all these LLMs that can just write your text and now produce your video that is sometimes quite hard to say if it's authentic, that you want to feel and record those subjects and then edited them and created the video, or it's just done by, I don't know, Sora or whatever, LLMs that are there.
Mm-hmm.
You already noticed any impact in that regard, how you create the story and how you tell them because of AI.
Well, I've noticed some people using it in certain ways that I can tell you I don't think we will ever use it. I think it's too early to tell what will be the eventual impacts of AI. But I think what we need to think about is, what are the things that AI can't do? And what are the things that maybe we were doing, but we didn't really like doing it? And whether AI could do those things for us. And that's how I've really approached it. I mean, again, coming back to video, AI has been around for a long time. I know that generative AI is a big step in this frontier. But I remember a world where I had to transcribe my tape. Yeah. And I don't want to go back to that world where I have to transcribe my tape. But that doesn't mean that I can't bring craft and, videography, photography is all about the capturing of light and going out in person and an interview. I mean, if you've ever worked on a documentary film or interviewed someone and you have that moment, right, where you guys are connecting, I don't think an LLM is going to be able to replace me and those skills in doing that, right? So I think for me personally, it's thinking about what are the strategic ways that we can use AI to do our work more efficiently. And then because of that, what are the things that are more creative that we can free ourselves up to? And then in terms of like people using AI to create videos or stories, AI doesn't have our ethics. AI doesn't have our training in that, right? And I think that there is value in that. And so what we do as journalists, the type of storytelling that we do is very specific, and the ethics are what drives that. So even if we use AI as a tool to help support and help us do things more quicker, efficiently, at the heart, at the bedrock of our foundation, our ethics, the things that are driving our decisions, is not going to change. And so I'm a firm believer that we're going to be okay, even though it seems a little scary right now. Yeah.
What's the best way to pitch you a story?
That's a good question. So I think it depends on what's the beat, right? I've met many of you throughout my time as an arts access editor, and when I can take a moment to meet someone for coffee, I will. I love it. I enjoy it. And we talk about that. That's honestly like the first question anyone asks me. How can I pitch this story to you so you guys can report on it? And it depends on the beat and what the audience finds interesting, right? Because you and I share the same goal, right? You want people to see your stories. We want people to see our stories too, right? We also have a journalistic news value that we approach stories, right? Does this rise to the level of something that we should report on? But for me and my team, something that I always express to people, it's not enough that a show is coming to town. One, we found that unfortunately the way people are discovering stuff like that isn't necessarily reading about it in the same way. I'm sure if you guys follow a lot of accounts, right, they pop up and say, oh, there's this cool thing happening, and then you go to it, right? It's a very different experience, right? So we need to experiment with social media in terms of going to those things. But also our lens was looking at things through access and equity, right? So it's not enough that something is happening. What is this angle here, right? And so knowing the beat of the thing that you're pitching for, and also the sort of themes or stuff that pop up that are interesting, it might be really harsh, and I don't mean it to be harsh, but what is it, the thing that's going to make people beyond you care about it? If you can really drill that down, figure that out, and sell that, that's going to be a much better pitch to someone. Yes.
I have two questions. My first question is, where are you finding your creative joy right now? Like, how are you filling your creative bucket right now so that you can bring it to work every day? And also, where do you see yourself going as far as like, what do you want when you retire, when you kind of slow down? What is the ultimate, if you could like, in the pie in the sky?
Wow. Are you like talking to my therapist or something? Okay, the first one. What am I doing to fill my creative cup of joy? I have a 3-year-old son. His name is Cam. And I have really enjoyed cooking with him lately. It is so messy, y'all. But having him there, chopping stuff with me, and we're like working on recipes. We're actually doing a big Christmas cookie baking party tomorrow with his cousins. So that to me has been really fun, like special moments. I think as a parent, are there any parents in the audience? Right. Sometimes you're tired. You're like, oh, why are you asking me so many why questions? But doing creative things with him, like crafting and cooking and stuff, has really been something that has been filling up my cup. And it's making me less likely to be annoyed. And then the second question, retirement. Y'all, that's like 40 years. I don't know. I am a firm believer in all these projects and these things. I just kind of want to make things a little better than when I found them. I became an editor because I wanted to create opportunities for other women and women of color, you know, who aren't usually editors or videographers in the news industry. It's grown a lot since I started, which is really amazing. So if I've like touched a couple of people's lives or created opportunities for people, I think I could be happy when I retire. Yeah. Amy?
First, I want to say, if anyone wants to give us a story tip, there's an email.
That's true. Yes. Sorry.
It's newstips@dallasnews.com. Then I have a question.
Oh, okay.
How did you balance new motherhood with starting this project here?
What a great question, Amy. I don't know. It was kind of a blur. I have this great story of when I first started, because what I did is I was on maternity leave and I went back to Austin PBS for like a couple weeks, and then I was like, hey, I got this opportunity. And I moved from Austin, changed jobs, and I had a 3-month-old baby. And I remember the first event that we had here, we had a panel discussion about, I think, women in leadership in the arts, and they were introducing me. And I was still breastfeeding at the time, and I was in the parking lot breastfeeding my 3-month-old, and then I chucked him at my husband and ran in here to say, hey guys, I just started. I think the way I balanced it was like not thinking too hard about it, but also like family was such a great component. I had such great family. I mean, that was the big reason why moving back to Dallas. I have a huge family. I have both my parents are one of 8 children. So I have lots of aunts and uncles, lots of cousins. Yes, very, very loud holidays, which is exciting. And so leaning on them. And also, like, I gotta give a big up to the DMN because they have been so flexible. Do you know how many germs a toddler has, and you just have a new sickness every week? And so the flexibility of being able to work from home or, you know, shift your hours, that has been really helpful. I feel like I've been really blessed and lucky to be working here because that flexibility, I don't know if it would have been possible to do that without the flexibility. You had a question, yes?
Yes. I could not help but notice echoes and the theme of your whole talk. It ties back to a quote. It's a favorite of mine. If I cannot do great things, I will do small things in a great way. So I'm just curious, if there, in addition to the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who else do you hold up as guides for your long arc?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. And what a great quote too. Can you say it again?
Sure. If you cannot do great things, then do small things in a great way.
Do small things in a great way. Yeah, I love that. You know, for me, I think the people that have been most inspiring and have sort of like pushed me forward are the people in my life. I have to give a shout out to Tom back there because here's a person who I think believed in me over 10 years ago. I mean, even when we were first working in Mexico together, it felt like Tom was like nudging me to like, hey, you should help this person or you should do this. And then, you know, to remember me 10 years later and to think about me for an opportunity feels really special. And he's continued to be a great mentor for me. And I think Tom is a great example of doing small things and creating a ripple. I mean, if you meet any journalist, it's like, what's that Kevin Bacon thing? Like the 7 degrees, it's like the same thing with Tom Huang. Like he has touched so many journalists. And there's been countless other people like that have shown things. And then I also think, I know it's a cliche answer, but I feel like my mom was a great version of this for me. She's an incredibly generous and selfless person, and she's very like loud and proud of who she is, and made me feel comfortable being loud and proud of who I am and not trying to hide parts of myself to be in an industry that frankly didn't have a lot of people that looked like me in it. Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's so many people. I wish I had like enough time, but there's so many people who just took an interest in me and saw something in me that maybe I didn't see at the time. And that's a big reason why I love working with interns and other people just starting out their career, because it had such a big impact in me and what I'm doing. And I would love to, create that pathway for others as well. Yes.
So you said you applied to the Dallas Morning News many times.
Mm-hmm.
What made it different this time that they said yes to?
I don't know, Tom, do you know what made it different this time? No, I'm just kidding. I probably needed more experience, It's hard breaking into this paper is a big deal, It's one of the best regional papers in the country and a long storied history. And they're not just going to hire anybody, frankly, you have to prove yourself a little bit in journalism, and that's okay, And I'm thankful that I got the job now than before then, because I was able to build some grit, some confidence, things in myself that I did not have in my early 20s. So yeah, I think it was probably a combination of experience and just, I am a firm believer in the universe. Things happen when they're supposed to happen. And I think this happened right when it was supposed to happen.
One more question.
One more question. Okay, all the way in the back.
Hey, I really appreciate your vibe. I like that you brought the family and, the fact that we're impacted by all of those things. And also, I'll just go kinky Freeman and say, God bless the Dallas Morning News.
That's right.
Home, gets a cup of coffee and, Dallas Morning News.
Love it.
Personal relationship with our carrier. So thank you.
Thank you.
Walking through your story, I've heard some of this, but I'm curious, equity and access, I love hearing about that. Is there an intentional needs assessment, and what does that look like? I come from a social work background.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like when you want to make sure you're giving the community what it really wants and needs?
Yeah, I'm glad you referenced the needs assessment. A lot of the work when I was doing at Austin PBS was informed in sort of like this social work practices and doing these needs assessments and surveys and really asking folks what they need from us. And it's also like surveying. We did a huge audit of the coverage, and what we found was 98% of the stories, which Austin PBS and PBS affiliates, if you see there's like a map and they're like, how many counties our broadcasting spans, right? It spanned at 40. And when we did the audit, we found that 98% of the coverage was Tarrant County. And then when you got deeper into zip codes, it was Austin, like the city of Austin. And so, no pun intended if you guys know Austin city limits, but the coverage rarely went beyond the Austin city limits, right? And so when you had that data and we saw that, then you could say, okay, this is who should we be talking to. These are the places we need to go. And then you listen and then you do stuff. And then the DMN is doing similar stuff. I think when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, especially if you've lived in a place for a long time, which a lot of our staff has, which I think is the strength of here. But even if you don't live in a place for a long time, it only takes a little bit to know, like, hey, these are areas that are underrepresented. These are areas that have not been covered as much as others. And so thinking about that with our Trust Initiative, we hosted a pop-up newsroom event in South Dallas, I think 2 months ago, and it was such an amazing experience to have people come in and talk to us, and it led to a lot of stories. There was actually a story the next day about a restaurant that was closing in South Dallas that we wouldn't have gotten had we not been in there. And I know we're going to continue to do that work in the next year. So look for us. We might pop up in your neighborhood, and we want to hear from you. That's it. Thank you all so much. Great questions. I really, really appreciate you being here.